Hey there, I am Jessica Bittman, and this is Bits and Bites, brought to you by the Greater Wilmington Convention and Visitors Bureau. Hey, welcome back. We are at Rockwood Park Museum. We are just outside of downtown Wilmington. We're going to learn about this beautiful estate. We're going to tour the gardens, and we may see some spooky ghosts along the way. Let's go inside. Hello, we are at Rockwood Park Museum, and I am here with Ryan Grover,
Hi.
the Executive Director. How are you?
Really well, thank you.
Excellent, and we are in the conservatory of this fabulous mansion. I am hoping you can tell us a little bit about where we are.
Sure. So the conservatory is at sort of one end of a house that was created by a guy named Joseph Shipley. Joseph Shipley and his family were from Wilmington. I think like his great-great-grandfather was one of the first mayors of Wilmington. But he was born here in the end of the 1700s. He actually worked in Liverpool, England for most of his career as a merchant and banker, and then eventually moved back home to Wilmington and created this amazing mansion, this Gothic Revival mansion here along the sort of cliff faces overlooking the Delaware River.
It's stunning. Now, how large is the mansion? How many rooms, bathrooms?
Good question. I've been here for about 27 minutes in this new position, but we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about 25, 26 rooms. The tours that we give will take you through about almost 20 of those rooms.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And there's a huge estate here as well. So there's also a lot of acreage where you can walk around.
Yeah, the really important thing about the house is that it's positioned in this really manicured, almost sort of fantasy garden setting. And so this initial sort of 6 acres directly around the house are really heavily cultivated. They're really beautiful. Some of the most beautiful gardens in the area. And then that is positioned in a 70-acre park.
Really?
So we get all sorts of different kinds of activities, from the sort of historic tours to garden clubs to huge festivals on the lawn, and we're able to accommodate a lot of different ideas.
I love that. Now, I love to go walk around in the mansions and just kind of see the different rooms. And is that something I'm able to do here?
Absolutely. Right now, because of COVID, of course, we are doing a lot of scheduled tours through the museum. Right now, it's Fridays and Saturdays, but eventually we'll be looking at going back to like Wednesday through Sunday as soon as possible.
Okay, excellent. And now, what about if I just wanted to walk around and enjoy the gardens? Can I come at any time?
Absolutely. Yeah, both the gardens and the conservatory that you're in right now are open to the public to be able to walk through at any point.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, it's great.
Great. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Hey, Ryan. So what can visitors expect when they walk through the house in terms of style and decor?
Oh, absolutely. So the house is done in the Gothic Revival style, and this was a style of architecture that was really picking up steam as we were nearing the mid 1800s here in America, maybe a little bit earlier in the UK. And a lot of our ideas about the Gothic Revival come from our relationship to England over all those years. But it's really it was a really stylized idea based upon medieval Gothic architecture, meant to sort of evoke nature, meant to evoke the natural surroundings, meant to sort of mirror a lot of the forms that we see in nature, but really meant to sort of mark ourselves out as in non-urban environments. And so oftentimes we see individuals that had way too much money on their hands back in the 1800s, that they were creating these mansions in the wilderness, in these sort of idyllic sort of settings, and they are using the Gothic Revival to sort of communicate that they are one with nature, that they are in the sort of creating the sort of fantasy of this relationship with nature that is really, really lovely and really poetic. And so we've tried to maintain that sort of balance between the house and the nature here at Rockwood through our own preservation efforts. But in terms of what's inside the house, it's kind of a mixed bag. It's really, really fun. So like Joseph Shipley, he created this space to sort of serve that idea of his glory days retirement in in nature. And then the house passed to his relatives, first his sisters, and then eventually to his niece's family, the Bringhursts. And they were here for close to 100 years. I mean, they were,
Really?
and there were several generations of Bringhursts who lived here, and every generation that lived here brought extra things to the house. So there were this family was collecting right up to the point that they still occupied the house in the 1970s. So we see layer upon layer upon layer of styles and sensibilities, and from their travels from all over the world. So this is a really wealthy family. The Bringhursts had pharmaceutical money, so if that makes any sense to you. And so they traveled all over the world, and they brought these treasures back here. So the house becomes sort of a treasure trove of all of these experiences, all these places that they've been to, all the places that they lived, places they had other houses. And it's been really, really, it's a really dramatic setting.
I agree. Well, I love it. Everywhere you look, you just see these cool little touches and something for everybody's tastes and styles too.
There's a lot of stories here for sure.
So interesting. Okay, so we have a bird's eye view of this gorgeous estate from the veranda up here. Thank you, I'm so excited. So you have some events that you host here on the grounds. Can you tell us about different times that people can come here with groups?
Some of the biggest events that we have here at the museum, let me think if I can remember them through the year. So in June, we have the Ice Cream Festival, and that's been going on for, God, I think probably over 30 years now. And then in September, we have the Fairy Fest. In July, we host the Shakespeare Festival here. So from the Delaware Shakespeare Company, they've been using our south lawn here for a really long period of time with the house as the background, which is fantastic. And then the last one, is the Holiday Open House, HOH, that happens in December.
Great, okay. I love this. Now for the, when you're here, like I said, we were talking about how much space you have. Tell us about the different gardens and what you can see when you're outdoors.
Historically, the house was set up, like I said earlier, that sort of 6 acres that happens directly around the house. And many of those were broken up into individual gardens. So there had been a house garden here at one point, and there was a walled garden that's associated with what we call the carriage house, which is our sort of wedding venue space. And so those different gardens are still very much intact in place, with one exception. The vegetable garden had been moved. We created sort of a small community garden just on the outside of that 6-acre area because one of the later Bringhurst family members had turned the vegetable garden into a colonial revival formal garden that again is right next to the carriage house inside the sort of walled garden space that we have. But at one time there had been greenhouses here. There had been sort of experimental sort of horticultural practices that were happening here. Joseph Shipley was a collector of rare and exotic plants. And so this used to be a real center for sort of horticultural study within the area. And again, this is like the 1850s, and he was playing with plants from all over the world. It was really wild.
That is so cool. Now you just added an apothecary garden, is that right?
This is incredible, yeah. So this is the first major garden that we have added to Rockwood's historic garden setting, that's 6 acres around the house, in the time period that the house has been in possession of Newcastle County. So since the 1970s, this is the first garden. The apothecary garden was brought in to basically honor the Bringhurst background with pharmacies. So their pharmacist background allowed us to start to interpret native plants in the area and to start exploring and being able to talk programmatically about what their medicinal purposes might have been. And we're hoping to expand that so that we can bring in other traditions that came to the Delaware Valley from the 1700s onwards, or even before that. So we're hoping to be able to talk to Native American tribes within the area. We're hoping to talk to individual practitioners of Western African traditions and sort of bring those perspectives basically into the apothecary programming as well.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's super great. And it's one of the only apothecary gardens that's anywhere within the Mid-Atlantic region.
Stunning. Okay, so Ryan, this is a cramped and creepy little space where we are right now.
It really is. It's totally off of most of our tours.
I love this. Now, are there going to be ghosts coming out here? Are
I
there
hope
ghosts
so.
living in this space?
That's what you pay for.
Okay, well, tell us about the ghosts that live here.
We have paranormal tours here at the museum, and they're sort of additive tours. So every time that you come, they're slightly different because the experiences of the last group help influence the next group. And then our tour guide also periodically through the year will do a lecture of sort of highlights of paranormal activity here at the museum. But one of the great things about the tour, about that specific tour, is that it takes you to areas of the house that nobody else gets access to. So right now we're standing in one of 3 servants' corridors on the third and most scary portion of the house. And you can tell by these cramped little doors, cramped little spaces, that this was sort of an almost sort of afterthought space meant to fill with lots and lots of servants. But over the 120 years that the family occupied this space, a lot of individuals unfortunately passed away here. And so we've had sightings of dozens of people here.
Now, are they friendly ghosts? Are they mean ghosts?
We haven't seen anything sort of malicious or malignant at this point. And one of the things that I think is sort of really fun about it is that we've also heard stories of ghosts of people's dogs. So the Bringhursts were great collectors of dogs. I think that they charted that there was like over 70 dogs owned here between 3 generations of Bringhursts. And people have had sightings and experiences of dogs walking through the house as well.
God,
so they can't be that bad, can they?
I got chills. I know, yeah, dogs are happy and friendly. It's all cool. So I love ghost tours, especially in the fall. So how can I come here with my family? And
Absolutely,
walk around?
totally family-friendly experience, and it is the best place to go is rockwood.org, and you'll be able to see when everything is scheduled. During the fall is when we have the most paranormal activity, the most tours, of course, and it's when the audiences are really sort of ripe for that kind of thing. But we actually do paranormal tours all throughout the year.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good to know. Guys, how much fun and how beautiful is Rockwood? I really enjoyed being here. You know, what I love is that there's something for everybody. You know, the families can come and have a picnic. If you're a nature lover, you can go for a hike through the woods. And if you really want to know more about antiques and gardens, you can really get into the details here and learn about how the families lived. You definitely have to come by and visit. You can find us online, #Bits and Bites, and we will see you next time.